In 2003, I received a call from a very interesting man. He asked me to meet him, and during our conversation, he mentioned that as engineering consultants, we could design his future house. He may have seen some of our previous work. I left for the meeting, and I could see a beautiful lot of land. Then we went to his home. The man took out a piece of square paper, a pen, and drew a ground view by his left hand. It was the ground view of his future house at an exact scale of 1 to 200. At that minute, I was really shocked because he had drawn it perfectly. I nodded carefully, put the piece of paper in my pocket so as not to lose it, but my thoughts were focused on the idea that he would be flabbergasted by what a house we would design for him. So I said, okay, and went to my office, and the battle of the project could start. We met 3 months later, and I presented our proposal. Incomprehensible. He told me that it was perfect and that there must have been a lot of hard work put into it. However, nobody wanted this work, and he did not want it either. And what would he like, I asked. He again took out a piece of paper and drew the same ground view in a scale of 1 to 200. I was shocked. I was down. But I have to say now that although it was hard for me then, I have to thank him for what happened at that time. And what did happen? It came out during that first meeting. I didn't understand what it meant to feel secure. I supposed that an alarm and similar things would be okay, and that a good, firm door would be enough. But in this case, it was about how to feel completely secure. Well, why not? The house should have been secure. Therefore, a secure house had to come into being. I had to make it happen. Have a look at how it works. If the gates are closed in the fencing, here's a view from the road, and we can just see the fence and the house. But when the gates are opening, our eyes can see an open area in front of the building or the building itself and parts of the garden. So what? Let me explain by stepping a little bit higher. If the house is closed, it reminds one of a block, a raw orthogonal parallelepiped. But if it opens to the garden, two walls, the east and the west wall, run to the fencing and create a kind of front of the entry. Again, so what? If the parents are in the garden and, for example, they're celebrating something, the child opens the door to someone by using a home phone. That someone comes in and reaches just this area, which is the area in front of the entry, and that's it. He or she waits to be let in or not. The clue is in the fact that he or she cannot enter the garden. To reach the garden, he or she must pass the whole building. If the house is closed, the security area is incorporated in the house outline. If the house opens to the garden, the two walls run to the fencing. In this way, the security area is enlarged thanks to the surrounding garden. The innovation of this building is based on movable elements which intervene in the layout of the lot and change it accordingly. This is the first building of this kind in the world, and it's more than just a house. The most important thing is where the idea of this building comes from. Does this view remind you of something? Actually, I should show the idea on the draft. More specifically, it reminds one of an atrium house, because at the time of the first rejected project, I started to draw just an atrium house. When I had come to my office, because the idea of an atrium house was very strong in my head. The atrium house is designed so as to pass the atrium of the building to reach the garden. However, the problem was that everything happened on 2 levels. Now, everything is on 1 level. And this is the most important idea. The walls can move themselves, I thought. So now the building opens and closes. And this is the beginning of the idea and virtually the beginning of this building. Complicated mechanisms mean that the house acts as a live organism. Now, let's concentrate on those mechanisms. Here, we can see the ground view. To be honest, if we work on this project, I would never have come to the idea to use the ratio scale for exact scanning of his dimensions, which he designed and transferred into our project. Once I would have been flattened, but this time there was an absolute conformity to the idea. The client designed the center of the house, which we modified a little bit, and 80% of the ground view. Our work is the shell of the house, the whole mechanism as it covers the shell, and it works well. Yes, it really works. Here we can see the moment when the walls are running at the fencing. The whole building opens. We can see the layout of the floor and a kind of pavilion. There's the swimming pool. As it was outside of the strict security area, it's in the garden. But does this matter? This is just a view from the garden when the building is closed and the house is open. The moving wall is 22 meters long and 2.2 meters high. The window shutters, you can see, are 2.8 meters high and 3.5 meters broad. All these elements have the same exact thickness of 45 centimeters of the outer building walls. We can see the house from the south. Next, there's the swimming pool. On the roof, there's a terrace which can be reached through a passage over a drawbridge, which is the next movable element of the building. This is the south facade, slightly covered by a huge gate. There's one story with reference to this gate. When designing this building, we asked several companies to quote us a price for such a stately gate with really huge dimensions, 14 by 6 meters. We received quite a lot of offers, all of them with prices around 20 or 30,000. Today, however, one company submitted a price which was roughly 10 times higher. Of course, this company was excluded immediately. When the work began, all of the companies with their fair prices backed out of the job because they were afraid of the task, and only one company was left on the battlefield. This company built structures for NATO, shipyards, aircraft companies, and the first private customer on their list was our client. The huge movable blocks are 22 meters long, 2.8 and 2.2 meters high, and almost half a meter thick. They are really impressive. And now it's time to explain how everything is built and how it works. This is the structure of the longest movable wall of the building. It's a steel beam, and its thickness, which is close to the thickness of the wall, is based on the fact that it's filled up with rock wool. This is the reason why this beam and other partitions have very good insulation properties. It's driven by an electromotor which is built into the wall. The same way is used in all movable elements of this building: window shutters, roll-up gates, or the drawbridge. A question could be made concerning the cladding material. Naturally, it's wood, a light material, water-resistant alder plywood stained appropriately. At this moment, the clients themselves, under our influence of course, deserve credit for choosing the right color. The results are really good. But it's not the only reason why it succeeded. Let's go from the mechanisms to the next face of the house, to the organicness. A country house means old barns and dark wood. This is another reason why we used such materials to fit together with the country-friendly atmosphere. And this house is just like this, a lazy, quiet house. When you're inside, you think that time has stopped. It's a really beautiful place. The view inside through the opened window shutters could be a little different, but it continues such old country houses and shows very pleasant spatial interiors created by the customers. From my personal point of view, the building is very interesting thanks to the interconnection of the architect's and the customer's worlds. It was the customer who created this whole space according to his idea. An interesting moment in the life of the building absorbs light during the entire day. But when darkness comes over the building, the process turns over. At that time, it starts a heat emanation. It's the inner light which will be closed in its contour in a moment. The house will be closed to protect its inhabitants and to accumulate energy which it's gained during the day. And this is very important because it's a house with a very low energy consumption thanks to its thick and warm coverings. What's more, it's a very intelligent, passive building which can accept energy during the day and, if it's needed, during the night, and it can even better accumulate energy as well. In this way, an endless cycle comes into being. When the sun goes up, the building opens to the garden. The area before the entry is created automatically, and the house can accumulate energy again. The building contains something extraordinary, something interesting, then each day it behaves the same way. If you have a look at a plant, it behaves the same way each day as well. It closes during the night, it protects itself in the evening, and during the day it opens and absorbs the maximum from its surroundings. It opens and catches the light. The form of this plant is interesting and, I would say, attractive. The building is similar. If it closes, it's not nice. It looks like a block. But at the moment it opens, it becomes a friendly, nice, and interesting building. A habit was formed to think that an organic house is a house whose form continues nature. It should be more rounded, but in my opinion, this is a shallow and superficial approach. The organicness of this house doesn't have anything in common with the form, but with the way in which it works.